Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is a 2004 fantasy film directed by Alfonso Cuarón and distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures. It's based on the J.K. Rowling novel 1999 of the same name. The film, which is the third installment of the Harry Potter film series, was written by Steve Kloves and produced by Chris Columbus, David Hyman, and Mark Radcliffe. The story follows Harry Potter's first year at Hogwarts as he is informed that a prisoner named Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban and intends to kill him. The film stars Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter, alongside Rupert Grint and Emma Watson as Harry's best friends, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, respectively. And it also features well-known actors in supporting roles, including Gary Oldman as Sirius Black, David Flores as Professor Lupin, Michael Gambon as the replacement of Albus Dumbledore after the tragic death of Richard Harris previously, Emma Thompson as Sylvie Tawney, and Timothy Spall as Peter Pettigrew, as well as others, like Maggie Smith as McGonagall and Snape, Alan Rickman as Snape. And the film was released on the 31st of May 2004 in the UK and June 4th, 2004 in America, and it's the first Harry Potter film released in IMAX and to be used in IMAX technology. It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Original Music Score and Best VFX at the 77th Academy Award in 2004. It grossed a whopping $796 million at the worldwide box office, only against a budget of $130 million, making it the second highest grossing film in 2004. And the film received very massive praise from Alfonso Cuarón's direction and the performances of lead actors. It marked a notable change in the film series' tone and directing, and is considered by many critics and fans to be one of the best Harry Potter films. And let's talk about my kind of experience with Harry Potter, because this is kind of a retrospect, review. Now, I've seen these films like 20,000 times. I see these films all the time when I was a kid, Before the books, before I got introduced by the books, this was mine. People grew up with Star Wars, people grew up with Lord of the Rings, but this was me. The first 3 Harry Potter films, and the 4th one to an extent, were my childhood, Harry Potter 1 and 2 were on VHS, I remember having that, and Harry Potter 3 and 4 were on DVD, I remember. And I used to love watching these movies. Like the 4th one I was a little bit scared of watching because as a kid I found it's the most scary one to watch, but I loved watching these films again and again and again. They were my feel-good films, like these mysteries, Harry, Ron, and Hermione discovering these mysteries. It was just great, And I don't know when the first time I watched this film was. Probably was on TV one day, but I remember just always watching the first 2 films, and then this film, it looks very different, like even like the visual look. Let's talk about the good. It's like a notable change in the Harry Potter series. The first 2 films had this like kind of like childhood innocence. It was all light and colorful and clean, and then this film is starting to look a little bit darker. You're starting to get a little bit more like, again, the color is starting to like fade a little bit. It's still there, but it's going back a little bit. And Alfonso Cuarón's kind of like direction is really great. I feel like what he works well is the passage of time, like the way time is told in this film is much better than the first films, because in the first 2 films it kind of just cuts, but in this film I like how he uses the Whomping Willow as like a way to tell which season it's in, and I really did like that, and what can I say? Like, just some of the cinematography he uses, like the shots he uses are just so great, absolutely amazing. I like how he sets up main pieces, like, this bird flying through Hogwarts and then getting struck by the Whomping Willow. You might think why, but it shows you that the Whomping Willow is a dangerous tree. Harry and Ron have obviously experienced it, but obviously this is going to play a major part later on in the film. It's kind of foreshadowing that. And yeah, just great. Harry flying on Buckbeak along the lake, and then you're having John Williams' score playing in the background was just magical, and it was one of the most memorable moments when I was a kid. Just that one scene when he's just riding, and it's just great, And the night bus sequence is fun and amazing and weird and wacky and just wonderful, Yeah, the tone of this film is very different, it's starting to feel more like this is a world that's been lived in, like, I don't know, like a lot of like the buildings are like, they look more gritty and real and grounded, and it has this certain essence to it that the previous one doesn't have. It kind of feels a bit more like, yeah, this feels a bit more, lived in a way, and I love it. But let's get on to our main trio and the actors. And I feel like the actors are starting to understand the roles a lot more, and they are, particularly Dan Radcliffe, like that he has improved. It's very jarring watching these for the first two films, because they were filmed back to back and they look somewhat the same, but this film had like a 1 year skip in production, and now they've all come back and they've all gone through like growth spurts, and they're all starting to look really tall now, and they're starting to look older. Like I'm talking, like everyone is starting to look older and taller, like their voices are changing, their bodies are changing, and it's like, wow, they're starting to look like teenagers, and it's really fun. Like I like watching these kids just grow up. It's like they're physically getting older. It's really cool, and I just love like the three of them, like Harry, Ron, and Hermione, like their friendship, and like just their friendship and all that lot, and just how much they just care for one another, and they just just the whole mystery and like the conspiracy of Sirius Black. Who is he? Like the whole story is really gritty, and it's just one main focus story. This man Sirius Black, who sold Harry Potter's parents to Voldemort. It's after Harry wants to kill him, and it's like, does he really want to kill him? Well, we're gonna go into spoilers. Obviously, it's not really the truth. I like how in like previous films, like we think that a certain character is the main villain, but this one is kind of like turn around. We think Sirius Black is the main villain, but at the end of the day, it's not, and he isn't really the villain, and it ends up being the most unexpected character, Ron Weasley's rat. Like, as a kid, that surprised me, like how Ron was carrying the murderer of practically the person who sold out Harry's parents to Voldemort, and I was just like, wow, 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 wow. That was really amazing, like just certain surprising reveals, The introduction of Gary Oldman as Sirius Black was great. He really placed this rough, scruffy looking dude well. David Fields as Professor Lupin. Like, Harry has a lot of father figures in this film, like as well as like having like people like Dumbledore and Hagrid. He's now got Sirius Black, and he's got Professor Lupin as well in the mix, and yeah, and I'm starting to really like this, like I like his interactions with them, and just some of the dialogue, it's straight out from the books, and it's just really done really well, and Michael Gambon as Dumbledore, I have to admit, isn't bad, and as a kid, I always thought it was the same actor until I got a bit older and realized it was different actors, but they look the same. Like, they look exactly the same. It's just their voices are a little bit different, and the way they behave is a little bit different, Michael Gambon's Dumbledore is a little bit more energetic. He's a little bit more, like, movie. He's a bit more there, But what I've noticed in this film is that even though he's introduced in this film, he's not in this film as much as the previous, like how Dumbledore was. Like with Harry, like in every film and even in every book, Harry always talks to Dumbledore. And in this book, particularly because I've read it, he does talk to Dumbledore a lot. But I noticed how they changed it. Like they made it like Dumbledore doesn't really like. They don't really like interact as much, and there's nothing intense going on. It's just, I think it's the transitioning into a new actor because of the death of the previous actor, Richard Harris. So they wanted this new Dumbledore to kind of slowly make his way in, to slowly sink in. They didn't want him to be in the film as such, like him being there all the time. They just kind of were like, just ease him in a way, One notable difference is Hogwarts itself. Hogwarts itself is completely different. It's like they revamped it and they just moved it somewhere else, And yeah, this film was, because it was filmed in like, I think it was filmed somewhere in Scotland this time around, and yeah, like Hogwarts, we do see like the courtyard and the bridge, and it's very expanded, it's bigger, you know. Hagrid's hut, they've moved Hagrid's hut like way down at the bottom of a steep hillside, you know, and they've made a big pumpkin patch. Hogwarts itself looks different. It feels like it's higher up from the ground, and even the uniforms look a little bit different, you know. Like they feel more like how, you know, uniforms are like in the real world, you know, like, you know, I like how like the kids are like wearing their uniforms how they would like to their characters. Like some of them have their shirts not tucked in and their ties away a certain way. And it kind of reminds me of being in secondary school in a way. It does remind me of that in a way, and I like that. Yeah, Hogwarts looks different. The visual look is much different, and it's just it feels grander this time around, you know. It's very nostalgic every time I watch this film. The music and everything about it is just great. I love the first sequence when Aunt Petunia's just being blown up. It's just funny and great and just wacky, and yeah, like I love how these characters are getting into their own. But despite me liking this film, there are some things I'm a bit mixed on, and this is due to the fact that I read the books. Now, I read the books like in the summer, this summer, and after reading these books, I thought I've always avoided the books because I felt like if I read them, it will alter my feeling and take on these films. But I wanted to see what it was about. I wasn't expecting to love these books as much as I did, and reading the books, I have to admit that the movies kind of do the books injustices at times. You know, it cuts. I know it's a film, but they cut a lot of interesting and very, you know, necessary details. You know, like, I like how we get the whole backstory of like the Whomping Willow being created for Lupin because he was a werewolf at school and he needed to hide him, and then you have like from the books, then you have like just like more interactions, you know, with like certain characters and just more theories. Sirius Black, like kind of breaking his way into like the common room, and then you have this whole like arc with who gave Harry the broomstick and Hermione getting paranoid, and then Ron and Hermione bickering, and oh gosh, just so much good stuff from the books that didn't make its way into the film, which I was a bit disappointed and sad about. But I mean, you just gotta cut some corners when you do stuff like this, you know. And for what we got, even though it's a considerably trimmed down story of the book, for a film, it is pretty damn great. Like, I love this film, you know. It is, I think it is the best Harry Potter film just because it feels like a movie, you know. The other films felt like an adaptation of a book. This one feels more like it's telling its own thing as a film. It's taking the story of J.K. Rowling and it's turned it into a movie. Like, how can I make this into a blockbuster? How can I make this appealing? And this is what Alfonso Cuarón has done, you know, where he's cut corners, he's done it, but at the expense of like adding cinematic spectacle and just great dialogue, great writing, great pacing, great story, gripping characters, wonderful everything about this film, very nostalgic. I'm gonna give this film, it's obviously 10 out of 10 and an A-star just because I've seen this film as a kid, and I guess it's more nostalgic, you know, because I'm more biased, but these first 3 films of the Harry Potter film series are just nostalgic to me, or the first 4, and I just love them so much, and just great. And thanks for watching this review. Please like and share this video and comment down below and tell me what's your favourite Harry Potter flick. This might be my fave. Read the Harry Potter books and tell me what you think about them. With that said, thanks for watching. As always, Boyd Review signing out.